Okay, here we are coming up to Nate Harrison, and then there's a mile or 3 of pavement before we get to the good stuff. Oh, good. Car's going that way. That's weird. It's not a road I'd want to take a car on. It's certainly not impassable, but it's going to be rough on the suspension. Earlier, gosh, I think it was in the fall. I don't know what the reproductive cycle of orange trees is, but there was a point of a couple of months earlier on where the fragrance of the orange blossoms was absolutely intoxicating to this entire area. It was just this thick, dense, heady, beautiful aroma, and oh my goodness, it was. I wish that it's something that you could capture in smell-o-vision, because it's just absolutely out of this world. There's so many cool things about living here in SoCal. It took some time to get used to not having proper trees, real deciduous trees with big leaves. Although now that I'm in the mountains again, or in the mountains period, I definitely have more, scrub oaks and so forth around me. But for the first year, 11 months, it was just palm trees, and palm trees don't count. Hoping this person will let me by once we get to the dirt, if I can't pass before then. And then I also similarly hope if they do let me pass them that I don't biff it. Okay, they're turning. Yay! Winning! Okay, here we go. It'll be interesting to see if, with a decreased tire pressure, this bike does better on washboard. And I also made sure that the rear ABS is disabled. But this bike really hates washboard. It lurches, and maybe all dirt bikes do that. I don't know. The GS doesn't do it, so Jesus Christ! Nope, it still hates it. The GS does it, but to a lesser degree, because it's got that amazing telelever suspension, and especially if you turn off of traction control fully on the GS and disable ABS, it's a champ off-road. It just eats up the bumps like you would not believe. I think there's not going to be a lot of talking here because I don't even know if I can be understood without how much my voice is bouncing around here. Oh my god, yeah, it hates washboard. I don't even know if I should stand up on the washboard because I can see myself getting flung over the handlebars. However, I feel like it is more solidly planted with the reduced air pressure. It definitely, it's much nicer. Easily more nice off-road than it was less nice on-road. So the GS would be sucking this stuff right up for me. Standing up, sitting down wouldn't matter. But the GS also weighs 700 pounds and has a lot more technical advancements. The KTM, as I'm learning, is a very bare bones bike. As I mentioned, this is a 690 Enduro R. So while it is an exquisite machine for off-roading, it lacks the creature comforts that I have become so accustomed to on the GS. And I miss them. I miss especially having a power outlet. That'll be easy enough to fix when I make the time and effort to do it. Having a temperature gauge is nice. Oh god. As well as an engine gauge. TPS for the tires is awesome. Which, this bike has none of those things because they want it to weigh as little as possible and be as simple as possible. Because a lot of people who do the really extreme off-roading stuff, they don't trust electronics, and justifiably so. I feel like I'm going to chip a tooth if I keep talking here, so I'm going to be quiet now. Now I see why. Oh, Jesus Christ. There's a guy in our group that when I want to make him anonymous, I call him Bike Guard. And the riding club knows who that is every time, but the general world at large does not, of course. So, the more I do this off-road stuff, oh God, the more I understand why he has a Bike Guard. I have chipped a tooth recently, and it has caused me a lot of grief. And I really am not eager to repeat that. All of my off-roading buddies have been trying to drill into me when in doubt, throttle it out, especially with sand, because sand freaks me out, like whoa, like real bad whoa, even on a dirt bike. I just have to get used to the end swinging around on me, and instead of letting off on the throttle when that happens, oh God, giving it a little gas apparently. And so far, they obviously know what they're talking about. It obviously works. I just have to get better at it. So as you can see, this is not a difficult road at all. I mean, it's a normal, like, fire road. Oh yeah, I'm swimming around all over the place back there. And I've even been trying to practice, kind of putting my foot mostly down in some of the turns and throttling a little bit harder to get a sense for, when the back end actually is going to wash out on me. But I don't do a lot of that alone. It's just unwise. I feel like the potential for injury or major bike damage is higher there. And this bike has no additional protection installed on it yet, no crash guards, anything like that. So right here. Yeah. Because as I understand things, and I could be wrong, you don't so much turn or counter lean the bike to turn it, so much as you kind of lean it over, hit the gas, and then let the spinning tire carry you around through the curve. And that's just bizarre to me. Not to mention all the counter leaning of the bike. Yeah, see that turn right there on the GS is a bitch. It was totally easy on the KTM. I don't know if the angle of the camera lets you see the front of the bike, because thank you, Cena. But yeah, I think you can probably kind of tell when the back end is swimming around, because the front end probably gets a little out of alignment in terms of heading and bearing. Oh, the other reason to stand up on bikes is to absorb bumps and lower your center of gravity. So if you're properly decoupled from the bike, meaning your legs are not clinging to the tank, your butt's up off the seat like this, and your hands are just loosely placed on the handlebars, your weight is on the pegs entirely. That really reduces the center of gravity on the bike and makes it more stable. And it also makes it less likely to dismount you in the event of hitting large bumps, especially unexpectedly. But it's also, and I'm writing about this on the Motorcycle Playground blog right now. It's also more exhausting, because you're basically doing a lot of little squats really, really quickly. And I am grotesquely out of shape, both in terms of weight and overall physical condition, strength, in terms of strength. And I'm actually writing about that more than the other stuff on this particular post. The first time I dropped the GS was on the Santa Isabel Truck Trail, and it was due to a variety of factors, but one of the contributing factors was my legs were so tired from riding off-road and standing up for hours, and B, doing it incorrectly. Like my friend Rich is very good at off-road, and he says, you don't need to stand up the whole time. You're riding a $20,000 motorcycle there with highly advanced suspension. Sit down, let the bike do the work. Or if you got to stand up, don't bend your knees. Just keep your knees maybe relaxed, but you don't have to suck up the bumps with your knees because the bike is going to do most of that for you. And that was a revelation. He was absolutely correct, of course. On the GS, it's just like that bike eats up bumps like I did not believe. Oh God, it's so pretty. There's a little spot about halfway up, maybe a little farther, that I'll stop and probably take some pictures. It's just a really pretty spot. And it's a good place to take a break, get some water, whatnot. Another thing that I've learned since being out here that was emphasized recently on the backcountry discovery route lecture that I went to is the concept of ride right. When you're off-road or on narrow roads like this with blind corners, if you stay to the right side of the road, you're much less likely to get destroyed by oncoming traffic. And that has saved my bacon at least twice, probably a dozen times, but two very memorable times, both of which were on the High Point Truck Trail. The first time, it wasn't anybody's fault per se. It was just a really, really, really narrow part of the road. And it was a blind corner, and I didn't really understand that you should probably honk your horn at those types of turns. And I'm not doing it here either because I'm an idiot. So I came around the corner and there was a BMW X5 right there, like in front of me, and I had to literally dive into the bush at the side of the road against the rock wall because there was no place to go. And that guy was cool. He wasn't going too fast. He stopped. He made sure I was okay. He waved, and then we carried on our way. It was not an incident. However, 10-15 minutes later, same thing. I was riding very well right on the road was not as wide as this, not even as wide as this part here, but I came around. I was starting to go around a blind curve, and this Isuzu Trooper came around it was a Land Rover, came around the corner very fast, totally in my lane, and I had to crush myself up against the rock wall. Like my foot was literally resting sideways on the rock wall. My mirror was against the rock wall because it was a rock face like this, next to me on the side, but you probably can't see because of the sun of stupid angle. And that guy didn't stop, didn't wave, just kept going on at the same ridiculous speed. And unfortunately, the GoPro 5 did not have enough resolution or frame rate to capture his license plate because I really, really wanted to file a complaint. There are one of the things I love about it here is that there's adventure to be had. There are very few safety boundaries. You can die not even trying out here. If you get dehydrated or get bitten by a snake or stung by a poisonous plant somehow. I don't even know what poisonous plants are out here, but it is a very harsh environment, and it will kill you. And then if you are doing shit like this on top of it, and this is being very mellow, but it adds risk significantly, especially if you're in a less populated area. There actually is traffic on this road sometimes. Not a lot, but I do see cars occasionally. Help is a long ways away, unless you're getting flown out by, medevac or something. Here we go. This is the spot. Yeah. If I can find a spot to get the kickstand down. Awesome. Take some pictures and I'll be back with you. Amongst the things that I want to do, but I'm not going to because every now and then my common sense kicks in, is take the bike down this little area here to the edge and get some pictures over there. Now, this is not a big deal for taller, stronger, and or more experienced riders than I, but I am who I am. The bike is what it is. And also the steering radius is not awesome. Although I could probably just flip it around on the side stand. But it's such a cool view, and that's where I came up, down there. all the way over there. Pacific out that way. And San Diego's way out that way. But it's just such a cool place. Really nice, beautiful, serene. And this is not a really hard section of road here, but I can see myself fucking it up. I would probably go straight along the high points and avoid this shit. But I'll wait to do that until the cowboy's with me, or Nick, or somebody else. This is how out of shape I am. I'm winded from walking around, standing up, sitting down, kneeling, taking pictures. Yeah, this is not awesome. Must be fixed. And I'm working on it. Yoga. Yoga, losing weight, other core strength activities. The cowboy puts me to shame in so many ways. He is ridiculously in shape. I mean, he's got some extra weight around the middle, but the rest of his solid muscle, like, he's almost impossible to give a really good massage to because his muscle is so solid. I can't feel any reference points through it. Yeah, I assume his species, whatever that might be, has ischial tuberosities, his sit bones. I can't feel them. They're in there somewhere under those glute muscles, but man, they're buried. He can pick up my GS with one hand, which, I mean, it's kind of, one of those, oh, I must fan my pearls, you're so strong moments. But it's also just like, son of a whore. I can't pick it up at all, which I think blows his mind. I don't think he has any understanding of why I am so weak as to not be able to pick up the GS. I mean, I've got some legitimate back issues. Hauling around gigantic breasts for 30 years has destroyed my lower back. And I also ruptured a disc in the lower lumbar region in March of last year, 2017. And so, there are some anatomical, physical issues there, but none of that really is a good enough excuse. Whew, okay, that worked. Everybody tells me, oh, it's fun when you slide the tail around. Like, yeah, sure, fun. Maybe on my not 700-pound bike that costs, some $27,000. And they were right, of course. They're always right. Almost always right. There have been a few notable exceptions. Fortunately, none have been fatal or that expensive. At least where I'm concerned. Plenty of members have really gotten themselves hurt wrecking on road and off, to the point of having to be medevaced out by helicopter sometimes. That was Rich, the guy I referred to earlier with the you just sit down advice. So if Dana Delaney is 60 some odd years old and looks that amazing and is okay saying she is 60 some odd years old, I figure it's time for me to just suck it up and admit my age to people. And the more I do it, the easier it gets. I'm 47 years old. I was born in 1970. There we go. And I don't think I look my age. And if people are being honest instead of just kind, no one else thinks I look 47 either. So yay! Thanks, Mom, for the good genes, I guess. And the bad ones. The hell was I even saying? Oh, so I'm 47, so I'm learning how to ride a dirt bike at age 47, out of shape, and I was initially learning on a 700-pound motorcycle. That's very expensive. Not the best of possible situations, right? And I'm also not financially well off. I barely make ends meet right now because of really stupid decisions financially. So, if I wreck and seriously fuck up one of my bikes, that's it. That bike is in the garage. It's grounded for a while, a good long while. So, there are stakes for me with this. Not to mention not healing as well as I once did. But Rich, this guy who's now excellent, outstanding rider off-road, I guess he learned when he was 57. So, 10 years later, granted he's a hell of a lot taller and stronger than I am. But man, if he can do it, so can I, right? And that's kind of my motto with motorcycles to an extent is, if the person I'm following can do it, so can I. Granted, if someone I'm following, a Ducati, sport bike down south grade and I'm on my GS or on the KTM, no, if he does it, I can't necessarily do it. But if I'm following one of my club members on their GS or their RT or their R and they're doing it, then sure, I can do it. The difference being they're more confident, they're more experienced than I am, and so they know they can do it, whereas I don't know whether I can do it, so I'm just kind of taking a leap of faith. This is so much more fun on the KTM, man. It's not as smooth, but the tighter turns with the sand are much easier, less scary. The washboard is harder, but I also know that if I drop this bike, I can pick it up. But I do need to not let myself get lulled into a false sense of complacency, as the cowboy is fond of telling me. If you get going too fast where it's smooth and you suddenly hit a spot that's not smooth, that's outside of your skill zone, you can get hurt in a real big hurry. And I have experienced that firsthand now on the GS, the first moving drop/wreck I've had in almost 20 years. Probably more than 20 years, actually. It was riding with Rich. He was helping me, get better at the dirt things. It was the end of a long day. I was tired. I had dropped the bike coming to an emergency stop during practice, and so that was the first time I had dropped the GS. And that was a big psychological thing for me. It's like, oh, okay, I've dropped it. Fuck it, let's just do this. And I was getting tired. I was getting ready to be home. So I'm just like, all right, fuck it. I'm going fast. And so I was going way faster than I should have been. And it was all fine until I went through a curve that had relatively deep sand. And it was instantly over. It was just 1 minute I'm fine, the next minute I'm like, uh-oh, and then I was on the ground. No, I'm sure a more skilled rider obviously could have saved it. I think my biggest mistake was I stopped trying to save it. I didn't know how to save it. There's a saying in aviation, you never stop flying the plane. If you get into trouble, never stop flying the plane. And so, I try to apply that to bikes now. Never stop riding the bike. Never give up. And never giving up is something the cowboy is very good at helping me with. He has survived things that no human should have. Mostly because he refused to give up. He persevered. And that has become a new motto for me this year, is persevere. I hold that at the forefront of my mind whenever I'm encountering an adverse situation or a challenge. WWTCD, what would the cowboy do? There's so much I need to learn. I need to learn how to lift the front end up. Not necessarily because I want to chase a wheelie down the road, which, let's face it, is kind of awesome, but not practical, not safe necessarily, and does not win bikers any points with the motorists, the other motorists on the road. Mostly I want to be able to do it so that, if I need to get over an obstacle or just lighten the front end a bit for whatever reason, so I can actually do that reliably, comfortably, safely. At some point I'll see if I can't give it a go here. The only way I have learned, not even learned, the only way I've been able to semi-successfully do a wheelie on purpose is if I go over a hill that has a sharp crest to it. I learned that on the FJ09 that I traded in for the KTM. Learned that accidentally. And I think probably everybody who's learning how to wheelie probably has the same two fears, but my two fears are looping it, obviously. Although with the GS that's less of a concern because the traction control would kick in before it looped, before I really got much air at all, probably under the front wheel. The second, like right here I'd want to, but I can't. The second being I'm afraid that the wheel's going to get crossed up, out of true basically while it's aloft. And I know in my head that if I were to, stop steering at that point, just let go of the handlebars, if not entirely, then at least mostly, physics would take over, the wheel would straighten itself back out because that is what spinning things do. They want to stay upright and they want to stay straight. But it's really hard to convince a conscious, logical part of my brain that A, that's what happens, and that B, oh, you're really fucked up right now. Basically let go of the handlebars. I don't see that thought process going well in my head. So I need to practice while I have another human being around. Getting up towards the top now. Smells lovely. You can smell the pines baking in the hot sun. But it's nice and cool on the shade side. Really nice. Hopefully these videos will be a little more interesting now that I actually can talk in them. With the GoPros, it was just riding, and not super exciting riding at that. So I'm not sure why people were watching those videos. I even got bored watching them. Maybe my dad would be interested, but I can't imagine normal humans who also ride motorcycles being at all interested in that. Yeah, this has been a lot of fun. It was a lot faster too on the KTM. It's more work in some ways and less work in others, but certainly less intimidating. I mean, I've done the High Point truck trail on it by myself, and that was no big, other than almost getting killed and then going down by those cars. I don't know why I was nervous about this. I guess probably just because it was harder on the GS. There have been a lot of fires in California lately. There's one burning right now up in Redding that has consumed enough acreage basically to go from San Diego to Los Angeles is the relative size of it. 95,000 acres, 950,000 acres, something like that. But it's a lot of damage. A lot of people have lost everything. Animals have died, people have died, houses have been destroyed. It's not been a good scene. There was one up in Idlewild that was intentionally set that got, a little out of control. And that really pisses me off. Anybody who deliberately sets a fire especially this time of year when it is guaranteed to go ape shit. My initial thought was, I want to slap the living shit out of that person. But that's not actually true. That's not what I want to do. What I want to do is make that person witness very intimately the grief and suffering of every living thing that fire impacted. Whether it's the animals that burned alive or lost their habitat or, whatever, were injured, whether it's the people who lost their children, their parents, their grandparents, their family, their friends, their houses, all of their belongings, family photos. I want them to have to know about that, to have to hear about it, to experience it. And then I want that person to carry it with them for fucking ever, because that is not okay. It's not excusable. It's unforgivable. I don't care what kind of pain that person was in. I don't care how much they were suffering. Setting a fire, not forgivable. Not in my book. There was also one fairly close to home. It was close enough that the smoke was actually very noticeable at home. The San Pasqual fire. And that was near the San Diego Wildlife Park, kind of between there and Ramona. And Saturday morning when I went into Ramona, the smoke was so thick you could see it in the air, you could smell it real bad. It's the fire season here is insane. And the heat wave has been ridiculous. From what I'm told, and I didn't move here last year until the beginning of August, so I've not been through this month before. I'm told that the excruciating heat like we've had this week doesn't typically come until the end of August. And residents here are really worried about what that, portends, because if August is going to be hotter, if September is going to be hotter than it has been in this July, we are super fucked. And I'm betting Mother's Kitchen is closed. It's the place everybody comes to up here. It's right down there. It's an entirely vegetarian restaurant, and it's really good. And so it's totally cool to be able to eat everything on the menu, including the chili. Normally the places we stop are like barbecue places or, Bob's House of Nothing But Meat. But Mother's Kitchen right here, super A+ fantastic. And a lot of the people that come in who aren't vegetarians don't even realize that everything is vegetarian, because they have really good meat substitutes for their chili, and their club uses these very convincing bacon bits, or bacon-esque bits, that aren't